What's up, YouTube fans? Today, we're going to do a comparison of the Blitzway Robotic Series Voltron with the Bandai Soul Jogoken GX71 Voltron. So, these are both masterpiece-ish versions of Voltron. They came out quite a few years apart. This came out in 2017 or very late, December 2016, but by the time I got it, it was 2017. This one came out in August of 2022, just recently, and I just did a review on it. So there are quite a few years separating them. Now, a lot of people told me maybe we shouldn't do this comparison because they're so different in price point and size. And to be honest, the same thing is true for other comparisons that I do. What I really care about is, are they competing for the same thing? And in this case, they both are, right? They're both quote-unquote masterpiece versions of Voltron, meant to be the definitive version, right? So that's what we're comparing here. Of course, cost is going to factor in. That's one of the things that we talk about in comparison, so that will come up later. Scale or size, in this case, is not going to come up. That is not one of the categories I use in my comparison. But for the purpose of comparison, I will show a scale comparison, but it won't be part of the score. With that being said, I try to be as objective as possible, but there's, of course, subjectivity involved with comparisons like this. So if I pick one and you prefer the other, then you win. I really try to do this comparison to help people make a decision what direction they want to go with their collection, especially with expensive pieces like this, where you may not end up buying both. So that being said, let's get started. We'll start off with accessories. All right, and there are all the accessories these two come with. There's quite a bit to go through, but surprisingly, a lot of them are very similar. So let's start off with the blazing sword, of course. Really, really similar in terms of design, colors, paint, everything. The only difference is the size. The Blitzway is obviously bigger, but very similar. They both come with the spinning blade. Now, the Soul Jogoken one kind of stores underneath here, and then the handle is stored here on the side. And it assembles exactly the same way. It's kind of funny. But you end up with basically the same thing, just slightly different shades of blue, shades of gold, but very, very similar, just different sizes. And then coming to the inside here, if you open up this, you get all of the accessories inside. Now, they do choose to store their accessories slightly differently, whereas the Soul Jogoken went for this kind of ninja style, weapons rack. The Blitzway went with this internal, hidden storage compartment. But they come with basically all of the same stuff. They come with all the weapons for the lions. They also come with the weapons that plug into the arms. And then they both come with a alternate face. Now I have the yelling face on there, so the face you're seeing here is just the straight face. So you really get the exact same stuff here. The only difference being, in my opinion, this stand itself is an accessory because you can display the lions. You can take these, flip them around, put them horizontally, and then display the lions jumping out onto the, like they're jumping out of the screen. That's really cool. I would count that as, another accessory. Now, this one has the stand here, but this has got all of that inside. But even without that, you've got these little pilot figures, which are an additional accessory that you get. So I'm going to give accessories over to Blitzway. They just have more and much cooler. At the same time, I'm also going to give them gimmicks because you've got the light up features on Voltron, on the Lions, as well as the Voltron combined mode. And you've got this display stand that allows you to display it with the lions jumping out, kind of ready to form Voltron. I'm going to give gimmicks to Blitzway as well. All right, next we'll talk about the cartoon accuracy. In order to do that, we'll have to pick a cartoon image here. Now, it really depends which image you choose from the animation because they differ a lot. But this one I picked is one that I think represents, for the most part, very often what it looks like. And in this animation, both of them really kind of nail it. I mean, they're really, really good representations of Voltron. Some of the things that kind of stand out, I mean, they both have wings that extend pretty far, that looks good, and it kind of fits in terms of proportions. The head on Voltron both look good. They've got the kind of thinner face with the, bright gold eyes. That all looks great. Arms look pretty good. Now here's where they start to defer. The Blitzway went with these covers to cover up the legs. Most of the time in the animation, you just saw these round hip parts. You didn't see the actual rest of the legs. So really cool effect that they were able to hide that away. On the GX71, although it still looks good, you end up seeing those leg parts. That just doesn't match as well with the cartoon. Both of them have a very, very accurate chest symbol here with the cross and the crown and the color scheme. That all looks good. Center chest and abdomen and the gold here for the belt does look good. I did notice, though, the GX71 went with the silver back, whereas the Blitzway went with this black back. I actually prefer the black back, but this is actually more cartoon accurate with the silver. Or I guess it's white in this card. Depends how you interpret the color. But as far as the hips, I think that the Blitzway has a longer hips, which looks proportionally right, especially compared to the cartoon. He's kind of got longer legs, which is that anime style, right? Really long legs with a large bottom. So that kind of makes sense on the Blitzway. These are a little bit short. When you come down to the lions, though, they're very, very similar. I mean, they look almost identical in terms of design. Only difference being the side of the legs are exposed here on the Soljigoken, whereas they're hidden with this panel. So I'm going to give cartoon accuracy over to Blitzway. I think they just did a little bit better job hiding away those legs, and their proportions seem to match. I'm also going to talk about Sculpt here since we're at it anyways, and I'm going to give Sculpt over to them as well. I think the overall look of this guy is really, really clean. Even on the back, this tail, it just hides away into his butt, whereas on the GX71, you can't fold this up. It just ends up sitting here. Not a big deal, but it's just cleaner. Same for the thighs, right? On here, the thighs actually collapse in with a spring-loaded piece. Here, they just have a cutout. So it's just not as clean on that. So we're going to give Sculpt over to Blitzway. I think they did a better job overall on all sides of the Voltron figure. All right, next we'll talk about the paint on these two. And when it comes to paint, they're very, very similar. It's almost like they copied it, but the black plastic you see on the body and on the head is unpainted, but the rest of the head, the silver, the gold, the face, obviously, the gold chrome for the ears, that's all fully painted. The chest symbol here with the silver and the red is painted on both. The red is a plastic, just colored plastic, and the black behind it is also colored plastic. The silver below that is all paint all throughout. Same for the belt here, the gold chrome. Here you got gold paint with a black backing. That's all painted. On this one, you got a slight bit of red paint right here, as this one is a red piece of plastic. It actually protrudes a little bit, so this one just has a little bit different of a sculpt to it, but very, very similar. Black plastic here. Thighs are both painted on both. You got the silver there. For the lions, I believe this is unpainted. Again, it's very hard to tell, but it looks like there's something in the plastic to make it a little bit shiny, but I believe on both the Blitzway and the Soljigoken, it is a plastic. The silver, of course, is paint on both of these. And then for the head, of course, you've got all this paint with the gold and the yellow and the red. All that looks great. So I'm going to give it a tie on paint. They're very, very close. All right, next we'll talk about the build quality on these. And as far as materials are concerned, they're very, very similar. They both have die cast, specifically in these lower lion bots. The legs that are chromed, those are actually die cast. There's chrome inside as well as in the thighs, and part of the internals of the black lion are also die cast. Same for this guy. Pretty much all the die cast is up in here in this region. There's a little bit up here, but it's much less because they wanted the arms to be lighter, of course, for balance. So both of them are very, very similar. I did notice that the legs on the black lion, which are hidden back here, are die cast. They feel really, really good. But as far as materials and build and overall quality, both of these shine. There's nothing really to be worried about in terms of quality, so we'll give them a tie. Next, we'll talk about the articulation on these two. In order to do that, we'll have to articulate each one individually and show you what they have. So for the Blitzway, the head is on a bunch of joints, so it goes up to there, down to there. You can actually get the whole neck down, so it goes way down to there. You can go side to side on that neck joint, rotates all the way around. Just there's really a lot going on that head. For the wings, they can go in and out on a ratchet, and of course it can go back and forth. The shoulders can rotate all the way around on a ratchet joint. They have a butterfly joint that goes upwards. I don't know what you call that joint, but I guess it's a butterfly joint, upwards butterfly joint. You also have this joint here, so it can butterfly inwards like that, and then you can just get that red piece back in there and then close that back up. You have a rotation at the bicep, double jointed elbow, but it only gets to really 90 degrees. If you bend the top one first, it still only gets 90 degrees, but it's a really nice feeling ratchet there. You get this joint here, which allows you to bring the arms inwards. It just gets you a little bit extra there. And then these arms, the hands can go in and out. Of course, you can detach for the lion head shooting gimmick for the toy head. You rotate here, and of course, you can open the lion's mouths. And that all works. You have a waist rotation here. It is locked, so it doesn't go past there. You have an ab crunch that gets you down to there. It's in the middle here. So that's pretty nice. Coming down to the legs, you have movement on a drop down hip, which then goes up to here on a really strong ratchet. While we're here, we can show the knee. It gets well past 90 degrees. You have the little hiding piece that allows you to kind of get in so you can get that knee well past. Leg can rotate back up and up to there. If you pull it down on that drop down joint, you can get it a little bit further back down here. Close that back up. Showed you the knee already. You have a rotation at the thigh. For the ankles, you get side to side. You get back and forth on a ratchet. You can also detach this one here. So you can get that, and you can get this one on its own ratchet. So there you go for the Blitzway articulation. For the Solo Jigoken, the head is on a joint that rotates all the way around, goes up and down. A little tiny bit of side-to-side movement on this, but not as much as the Blitzway. A rotation on a ratchet on the arm. Goes up to here. You don't get that upwards joint. This one does do that, by the way, but you don't get the additional upwards joint there on the inside of the shoulder. You do have a butterfly joint here. It does fold outwards, and then there's a locking pin here to lock that in. Rotation at the bicep. You have a double jointed elbow, but again, 90 degrees due to the sculpt and the way Voltron just works. You have a rotation at the wrist. You can pull these out. You can open up the claws, and you can detach the heads for the gimmick, of course. You have a rotation at the waist, but it's very, very limited. There's not much. It's maybe a quarter inch back and forth. You have a very limited ab crunch here. So that's it. Here, let me show you from the side with the arm out of the way. And it's kind of hard to get to, but it is right in the middle there. So you're basically lifting up on the waist about a quarter inch, or maybe a little more than a quarter inch there on that waist. For the hips, you get up to there. Not strong enough to hold the legs, though. They're just too heavy. Back to here. Out to the side, not much. They needed a drop-down hip, too. But you get basically 2 clicks out to the side. Rotation at the thigh. 90-degree bend at the knee. I could have sworn this went more. I guess not. So I guess that's it. It doesn't even go 90 degrees. You have the same tilt here at the mid shin. You have the rotation at the ankle, although I'm having trouble activating it. There you go. There is a heel spur on both of these, by the way. And you have the side to side here on the ankle. So based on the extra articulation here on Blitzway at the neck joint, the shoulder joint, and on the hips, the drop-down piece there, we're going to give articulation over to Blitzway. All right, next we'll talk about the transformation and engineering. When it comes to transformation, almost every Voltron is identical, and the same is true here. They're both easy to transform. They work the same way. The only difference is Blitzway's got the little extra panels here to hide things away, but they're not frustrating. They're not hard to do. They don't get in the way or anything. So I'm going to give them a tie-in transformation. Every Voltron basically transforms the same. Now, when it comes to engineering, I've got to give it to Blitzway. They figured out a way to hide away these legs. That's pure genius to me on both the leg mode and on the arms, and that's really good. I also appreciate this little bit of engineering on the legs. I can't remember why they did this, maybe for the lion mode, but the fact that this back is so clean and the tail kind of hides away and you've got this little, pop-in piece there that allows that extra articulation on the knee, that's just really cool. I just find that it's such a cool piece of engineering, and then I love the fact that they built in lights all throughout. Even though it's got all this articulation, all this cool movement, it's still got lights in there. So I'm going to give engineering to Blitzway. I think they nailed it here. And there you have both sets in their lion modes. Now I have them all posed here in straight poses. They're just standing up, nothing special, just so there's no, bias here in the look. Now, these sets are very similar in lion mode. They have basically the exact same articulation, the exact same available weapons, the exact same gimmicks of the little pop-up pieces, that you can display. And they have all of that. The exact same opening jaws, the exact same cannons inside the mouths. But I think I might have forgotten to show here on the Blitzway, but it does have the little posable cannon inside the mouth. You can move that up and down. And that's true for the Bandai too. They all have the exact same kind of features, materials. The only real difference here are the arm lions. They have different tails. The Blitzway has its own separate tail, whereas this becomes the combination joint. So this actually goes inside the arm, but it's got a little plastic, kind of not the best tail. This one's got its own posable tail, but then the combination joint goes inside there. So that's kind of a cool little thing, but we already give them engineering. Both are good enough. They both have tails. I just wanted to point that out. I also think the head sculpt on the Black Lion is actually much better on the Blitzway. I think it's just more squared off and it just looks cooler. Now, again, that's a preference thing, so I'm not going to count that against the alt mode here. So, me personally, I think these two sets are really, really similar when it comes to the lion mode. So, we're going to give it a tie here. My personal preference, though, is the alt modes, or the lion modes here on Blitzway. All right, next we'll talk about the cost, and this is kind of a no-brainer. Blitzway comes in at $700 retail. The Solo Jigoken comes in around $300. It depends where you bought it. I'm going by U.S. retail, so it's around $300 when I bought it. So Solo Jigoken is going to win on cost. And the final factor here is the Members' Choice category, where I ask my members to vote on which one they prefer in terms of looks. And I'll put the image up there with the survey, and you can see that the Blitzway is going to win the Members' Choice category. So final thoughts on the comparison. You can see the score there, and Blitzway is going to demolish the Bandai Solo Jigoken here in the comparison. And I'm not that surprised. I thought they'd get a few more points, but I did think Blitzway is going to win. Now, I have some things to say about this. So before I did this comparison, I had several people tell me I shouldn't do this comparison because Blitzway costs more than double, it's so much bigger, it's newer, and none of those factors are reasons for me not to do a comparison. I do comparisons when two products are competing for the same space, which is, in this case, an adult collectible version of Voltron that's trying to be the definitive version of Voltron. Both of these things are trying to do that. Now, of course, the Blitzway is going to cost a lot more, right? $700 versus the $300, more than double the price, and it's a lot bigger. But you really have to decide for yourself which of the categories that I scored here are more important. Is cost more important to you? Is articulation, engineering, transformation, on and on, all the different categories? Which thing do you weigh more heavily? I don't weigh the categories in my comparisons. I leave it up to you to decide, hey, what's more important to you? But as far as overall across the board, when it comes to these two, Blitzway for me is the definitive best Voltron we've ever gotten, and I have no doubts about that in my mind. So that's really it for this comparison. Hopefully I helped you make a decision what direction you want to go with your collection. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.